Hello? Is your refrigerator running? Yeah. Well, fuckhead, I suggest you run after it. Beep. Seriously? Hello, I'm Max, and if you found this channel, awesome. So, uh, 1 year. It's been 1 year since Halloween ends. Yeah, probably the most divisive Halloween movie since Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Yeah, it kicked off a shitstorm. But I just want to say before we get into it, is it still as bad as it was when it was released? I just want to state really quickly that I do intend to review every single Halloween movie in the whole franchise from 1978 original all the way to end, and maybe check out some fan movies on the way. So let's just get to the point. Halloween ends. So what I remember, I think we all remember, was the trailers. Remember the trailers that were released? They had this big, like, Laurie versus Michael, and this is it. This is the final battle. This is what it's all about. This is what it's all led to. And everybody was like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be awesome." And then there was leaks about a character called Corey. I remember reading where it said there was a character that wasn't Michael. So I was a little skeptic about that, but it was true. So Halloween ends. Was it as bad as it was when it released? Personally, in my second rewatch, I didn't think it was that bad. Yeah, it does have its flaws, don't get me wrong. I mean, when I first went to see it, I was going in with big expectations. I was expecting this big final battle, because that's what they promoted. And I walked out of the theater just confused. I was like, the fuck just happened? So I didn't understand that. I kind of seen what they were trying to do, but I just didn't. It just caught me off guard, But on my second rewatch, now I can see it a lot more clear what they were trying to do. I see that they were just trying to take a different perspective and a different formula. I mean, there's already, 8 movies of Michael going around and killing people. It's the same formula throughout all the movies. So they probably just wanted to try something different, but it's about execution. It didn't really, they flew the plane, they just didn't land it properly. And there was a shit ton of turbulence on the way. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of plot holes and questions that genuinely don't make sense. Like, the homeless guy, right? He knew that Michael was in this well, in the sewer. Well, in the sewer, right? For presumably 4 years. Why didn't he tell anybody? Why didn't he go to the police? He said himself, he knows Michael's in there. He says bodies get pulled in. So, I don't get it. And then there's the whole like Michael. People said Michael had to kill, you know, to get his fear back, like Pennywise. As we saw, like when he killed that cop, he stood up straight, right? That's an example. What about all the other people the homeless guy said he dragged in and killed? Why didn't he get his strength back then? And then transferred evil into him so he would do the killing. In other words, he was using Corey as a puppet. It actually reminded me of the end of Halloween 4. You know, where Jamie touched his hand and then all of a sudden, you know, she did the same thing. I was wondering maybe that could be a call back to Halloween 4. Like a little tiny nod. I don't know. That's just an assumption. But yeah, it has a lot of flaws, this movie. But I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to take a different perspective. And personally, I think if they had have introduced Corey into Halloween Kills and built up to it, maybe say at the end of Halloween Kills, after Michael gets beaten by the mob, say he somehow escapes, finds himself in the sewer, and the last scene, that's when he grabs Corey, and you see the eyes, and then I would have done like, you saw Corey's eyes, like pupils, get blacker, and then end the movie there. And then Halloween Ends, start off with that. That's, you know, they could have done that. That might have been, maybe everybody's fans would have accepted it a little bit better. But anyone who knows that Halloween Ends, the story that we got, wasn't the original story. You know, they're supposed to film Kills and End back to back, but then we had a pandemic, so they had a year to sit on it, and they came up with this. They thought, oh hey, why don't we make this? That'd be even better, wouldn't it? I just think if they had just went with the original way, which Ends was originally intended to pick up exactly where Kills ended. So you would have had the whole, you know, confrontation. And there's another thing. You know, we don't get to see Laurie's reaction to finding out that Karen's dead, her daughter. It's just 4 years later, life's going on, everything's happy, we're all cooking. It's like what was the point in killing Karen at the end if there wasn't going to be any payoff? You know, that's just what I think anyway, you know. They didn't acknowledge it. She was mentioned a few times, but there was no like... I do think that this is probably the most realistic version of Laurie that we've had since Halloween H2O. You know, because like she just seemed more closer to the version of Laurie that was in the original Halloween movie. So, you know, completely different from 2018 and Kills. You know, this one's more normal, cooking and swearing and, you know. So I liked that part. That aspect was cool. And I also think she was a badass in this. That one scene, like McCory's on the stairs, and like you see Laurie just sitting on a chair leaning back. Like, that's pretty badass. That's cool. It's subtle, but it's badass. You know. Like, she knew that he could have lunged towards her with a knife. Nope. Just sitting there in the chair leaning back. Like you would in school. But one thing I did love, well, I mean, I loved about the entire trilogy was the score, the music from John Carpenter. Perfect. I thought it was absolutely great. Especially the precision. fuck am I talking about? The music where they crushed his ass. Yeah, that's the one. But the whole music, like, I was listening to it, and it's just amazing, like, it's just a shame that big dramatic climax that we're all promised was just in the last 10 minutes. And I get that Michael is older, and what was he, in the 70s, pushing 70? And people, they were saying he's older and, he's evil, but the vessel, the human body, it ages. As she said at the end, evil doesn't die, it just takes shape. That shape was withering away because it was getting old. So I get that part. I understand that. Like, it's just, we're not used to seeing Michael like that. And I think that's the problem. We're not used to sitting there and seeing him so vulnerable and get his ass kicked by a kid and have his mask stolen. What the fuck? That was another thing I hated. Why do they keep taking his mask off? They did it, 2018. He had his mask off. Well, that was in the beginning when he got his mask. But in Kills, he had his mask stolen off him. Although it did lead to that really badass moment when the mob showed up. He put the mask on, that music kicks in. Perfect. I do appreciate that we got to see the knife kill to the wall and the head tilt. I don't see anyone really bringing that up. No one really seems to mention that. But it's a cool nod back to the original. It's not as good as the original. That was more effective and more scarier than the version that we had in Ends. But at least we got it. It could have been Corey doing that, but it wasn't, thankfully. They made it be Michael. So that's something. Halloween Ends is still a very divisive movie. And it hasn't aged well, not yet. There have been some people that, after the dust settled, they said, it's alright. But they did do a lot of things bad. They didn't execute it properly. I did enjoy it more on my second rewatch, but it wouldn't be my favorite. And I do see the flaws. They do stick out to me, like that homeless guy. That it hits me. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. And it's questions like that. I know people say, oh, you should be able to shut your brain off and just watch it, but shit like that happens. But anyway, it is still very divisive. They say a lot of movies can age better in time. I just can't see it. Nobody's used to seeing that version of Michael. Weak and withered and getting beat up by a kid. Things like that. That's why, primarily the reasons why people are just gonna really skip that one. So, yeah, the answer is yes. It still is that bad. Overall. But, comes down to perspective. I enjoyed it. It's not the best, but I enjoyed it. So, some people will watch it and they're not gonna tell anyone they enjoyed it in case they get disowned. So yeah, if you enjoy it, enjoy it. Don't let anybody, jump down your throat or, just because you like it, people say, what? Disowned? And you pack your shit and throw you out. And you end up in the streets like I did. 1 year later, Halloween Ends is still as bad as it was when it released. Might get better in time, but I can't see it. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, let me know in the comments. What do you think? Do you think it's aged well? Have you grown to like it? Or have you grown to hate it even more? Let me know in the comments. Let's talk about it. Thank you. Oh, and don't kill anyone. Just makes no sense. None. And then, like, I get what they were going for. You know, he grabbed Corey, by the neck, looked him in the eyes. You know that scene.